Have you ever wondered what it means to truly understand the human mind? The word psychology comes from the Greek root psyche, meaning soul, spirit, or breath, and logos, which means study or discourse. Psychology, then, was once meant to be the study of the soul, a poetic, almost sacred pursuit of understanding what makes us, us. But here lies a paradox. Modern psychology is bound by the rules of science, observation, experimentation, replication, and yet it seeks to understand things that were once considered intangible, elusive, even sacred. How can science, which denies the metaphysical, truly grasp the essence of consciousness, emotion, and spirit? And yet, this is the task psychology has set out to achieve. In Paul Kleinman's Psych 101, we are guided through the essential ideas, movements, and theories that define modern psychology. The journey begins with Ivan Pavlov's classical conditioning, famously demonstrated through his experiment where dogs began to salivate not just at food, but at the sound of a bell, having learned to associate the two. This laid the groundwork for behaviorist approaches. B.F. Skinner built upon this with operant conditioning, using his Skinner box experiment where a rat learned to press a lever for food, illustrating how behavior could be shaped through reinforcement. From Freud's psychoanalysis, a theory that explores how unconscious desires, repressed memories, and early childhood experiences shape behavior, to Skinner's behaviorism, which emphasizes that all behavior is learned and can be modified through conditioning using rewards and punishments. From Jung's archetypes, symbolic images and themes shared across cultures that arise from a collective unconscious, to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, a framework suggesting that human motivation moves through a series of levels, from basic physical needs to the pursuit of self-actualization, we see how humanity has tried, again and again, to define and understand what lies within. Freud began with the unconscious, the hidden desires and memories that shape us without our awareness. He saw the psyche as a battleground between the id, ego, and superego. Echoes of Plato's tripartite soul whisper through these concepts: reason, spirit, appetite, philosophies once etched into the marble halls of Athens. And then came Carl Jung, with his idea of the collective unconscious, the shared myths, symbols, and stories embedded in us all. Joseph Campbell, in his book The Hero with a Thousand Faces, expands on this beautifully through the lens of myth and storytelling. Both men show us that psychology, like mythology, is a mirror held up to the soul. As the field progressed, it tried to distance itself from such poetic origins. B.F. Skinner brought us behaviorism, the idea that only what can be observed should be studied. Rewards, punishments, conditioning. Man as machine, programmable and predictable. But others, like Carl Rogers and Abraham Maslow, pulled psychology back toward the human spirit. Carl Rogers emphasized the importance of the self and unconditional positive regard, proposing that people thrive when they feel accepted and understood, ideas inspired by existential and phenomenological philosophy, which highlight personal experience and individual meaning. The humanistic approach emerged, focused on growth, meaning, and potential, seeing human beings not as problems to be solved, but as possibilities to be realized. Maslow's pyramid, so often reduced to a graphic in textbooks, is actually a deeply philosophical framework for understanding human purpose. At its heart lies a simple, profound idea, that we are motivated not just by survival, but by a longing to become whole. From food and safety, to love, esteem, and finally self-actualization, the hierarchy of needs is a map of our inner becoming. Psych 101 also walks us through cognitive psychology, how we think, remember, and learn, and before delving into the biology of thought, it introduces us to the realm of social psychology. This branch explores how individuals are influenced by the people around them, how we behave in groups, how conformity shapes our actions, and how roles and expectations mold identity. The famous Stanford Prison Experiment by Philip Zimbardo, or Solomon Asch's conformity tests, reveal just how deeply our environment and social structures can influence our sense of self and moral compass. Then we move into neuroscience, tying biology to thought. It's here that psychology begins to intertwine with the physical sciences. Let's look at a few key examples. Serotonin, this neurotransmitter helps regulate mood. Low levels are often linked to depression and anxiety. That's why many antidepressants aim to boost serotonin levels in the brain. The limbic system, often called the emotional brain, this group of structures, including the amygdala and hippocampus, plays a crucial role in emotion, motivation, and memory. It helps explain why some memories are tied so strongly to emotional experiences. Brain plasticity, this is the brain's remarkable ability to adapt and rewire itself. It's how we recover from injury, form new habits, and even change our thinking patterns with practice and intention. The prefrontal cortex, this part of the brain governs decision-making, planning, and impulse control. When it's underdeveloped or impaired, people may act impulsively or struggle with long-term goals. These insights show us that thoughts and behaviors are not just abstract, they are wired into the very architecture of our brains. Theories such as Hebb's rule, neurons that fire together wire together, illustrate how repeated patterns of thought and experience can literally shape the structure of our brains. This is where psychology and neuroscience merge, cognition as circuitry, emotion as chemistry, memory as pattern. It's here that we see psychology partnering with science, each peering into the same dark cave from different angles, one tracing the outlines of thought, the other measuring its shadows and echoes in the folds of the brain. But this partnership also raises unsettling questions. If our moods, decisions, even moral impulses can be traced to serotonin levels, prefrontal cortex activity, or the firing of neurons, then where does free will reside? If the limbic system drives our fear, love, or aggression, then who, or what, is truly responsible when we act? This biological lens threatens to blur the line between choice and chemistry. If a crime is the result of neural misfiring or chemical imbalance, can we still speak of guilt in a moral sense? Is it the person who commits the act, or their amygdala? Psychology, at its scientific edge, confronts these moral paradoxes. And yet, even here, the question of accountability lingers like a ghost, challenging us to redefine what it means to be human in a world increasingly explained by the brain. And still, something remains just out of reach. The breath. The soul. The spark. It is out of reach not because it is hidden, but because it must be, for if it were measurable or fully explainable, it would cease to be the source of our responsibility. It is this distance, this unknowable space, that gives meaning to our choices. If our every thought and action were simply the result of chemistry, then who would we be, really? The spirit, that flicker of free will and moral awareness, must stay beyond the grasp of science, not because it's irrelevant, but because it's essential. Science, by its nature, cannot address the metaphysical. And yet, psychology is a science born from the desire to understand what lies beyond the physical. We stand at the intersection of reason and wonder, of data and dream. Psychology asks us not just how we think, but who we are, and perhaps, why we are. The books mentioned in this video are Psych 101 by Paul Kleinman, The Hero with 1,000 Faces by Joseph Campbell, Man and His Symbols by Carl Jung, Toward a Psychology of Being by Abraham Maslow, The Denial of Death by Ernest Becker. They are all linked below as a part of the Amazon Associates program. We earn a small commission through your purchases. It helps keep this channel alive and thriving. If you're interested in diving deeper into these beautiful ideas, do consider using the links below. Thank you for watching, and stay curious.